Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you for joining our webinar, a bulletproof content strategy for CMOs that scales. I can see we've got more and more people joining as we speak, so we'll give a few more minutes for the rest of our attendees to join us today before we go ahead with the keynote presentation. The keynote presentation from Bart will actually be followed by a Q&A, so I encourage you to submit your questions in the questions panel throughout. You can simply type them there, send them across, and we'll address them a bit later on in the webinar. Lovely. Just give it another minute or so. So keep thinking of those questions that you want to ask. Right, looks like we've got more and more of you, so we'll kick off the presentation. So as I said, thanks everyone for joining our webinar today. In this exclusive webinar, our expert speaker Bart will be showing you how to not only craft a content strategy that prioritizes personalization to keep your consumers engaged, but also how to scale your content approach to maintain and enhance the brand and consumer relationship, particularly when demand spikes, which is something that we're really seeing at the moment as all experiences are being moved digitally. So let me just first introduce to you the hosts of this webinar. So this webinar is being brought to you by Sitecore. Just a little bit about Sitecore. They are the global leader in customer experience management that lets marketers own the experience they deliver to their customers and prospects. So more than 4,600 of the world's leading brands, including American Express, Carnival Cruise Lines, EasyJet, and L'Oreal, trust Sitecore to help them deliver the meaningful interactions that win customers for life. That's Sitecore, your host. And then we also have CX2030. We're hosting this webinar in collaboration with Sitecore, and our mission is to give marketing and digital leaders all the resources you need to make customer experience a success at your organization, from great blogs to white papers to webinars like this one. So we hope you keep up with us after this webinar to uncover the future of customer experience. And then just a little bit about the faces that you're seeing on your screens. So my name's Darcy. I'm going to be the moderator for this webinar. I'm going to be facilitating your questions, helping you answer them. I'm head of digital and content at Chief Nation, a global B2B marketing agency working with leading technology companies like CX2030 and Sitecore. And then we also have Bart, if you'd like to introduce yourself, Bart.
Sure, thank you, Darcy. My name is Bart Lammerteen. I'm within Sitecore. I'm responsible for Content Hub projects throughout Europe. I have a background of about 15 years in marketing technologies, more specifically digital asset management, product information or product content management, and similar kind of solutions. And really happy to be here today and to have the opportunity to explain you a little bit more how we can help our customers in content management for customer experiences.
Thanks, Bart. Happy to have you.
So, purpose of the webinar is here to share with you a little bit our vision and strategy and how we typically help our customers with content management and personalization at scale. It's all about at Sitecore, it's all about digital and personalized experiences, and it's becoming more and more important, and a lot of brands and a lot of organizations become aware that experiences are much more interesting than products. Experience beat product 2 to 1, experience beat price 8 to 1. People are paying more if they are treated well by brands, and if they can and if they are personalized, and if you as a brand can guide them with meaningful experiences. Meaningful experiences that need to be personal, easy example. If I receive a newsletter, I like it to be saying "Hi Bart" and nothing else. And it needs to be personalized. That's a bit more interesting, because it's ultimately brands want to communicate with their audiences in a personal way, personalized way, meaning that I get information that's relevant for me, that's resonating with me, and that helps me engaging with those brands. And at Sitecore, we've established 3 core value pillars to help our customers with those personalized and personal experiences. Historically, we have been focusing a lot on the web content management part, websites, and what we call the experience platform within Sitecore Content Hub. We have our competencies when it comes to commerce and driving commerce in a personalized way. And our latest and greatest addition to the Sitecore solution stack of programs is to what we call solve the content crisis. It's about content that we need to drive that personalization, and how can we help organizations with a solution that makes it easier for them to do the planification, the creation, the collaboration on content, storing it, distributing it through different channels, and manage it overall. So I'm going to dive into that particular value pillar a bit more here. We advise, or overall, how do we see the world of on how to deliver those experiences that resign, that connect? Well, it's about building relevant content, obviously, for your different personas, for your different audiences, for your different user groups. Deliver them to the right channel and show that personalized content to your audience in order for them to get back to you and hopefully drive some outcome out of that personalized content. And obviously, we want to analyze, we want to audit the effectiveness of that content in order for the next round of for the next campaign, for the next iteration of this circular exercise, to continuously improve what we are creating and how we deliver that to our audiences. And we see 2 key challenges in this exercise. It's the implementation of that personalization, which means you need to gather a lot of information, you need to gather customer journeys, you need to be able to form and shape audiences and personas to start with that personalization. A second element to it is to deliver that personalization at scale. It's easy to do that in one single campaign. It's easy to do that on short term, but it's not too easy to deliver that at scale and to continuously deliver such an experiences to your audiences. And it is, we have some numbers here because to drive this personalization, if you look at purely the content that we need to drive that personalization at scale, obviously it's a lot. 97% of content marketeers say content is critical. I wonder what who those other 3% are, by the way. A lot of people are struggling with the variety and the volume of content that needs to be created. And obviously, and today very relevant, a lot of money, a lot of budget is being spent on that whole concept of how we create, how do we manage, how do we publish content throughout those different channels. In an ideal world, if you look at marketeers, if you look at content marketeers, you would be working like this. You go through a fixed process of ideation and planning, over creation and optimization with both internal resources as well as with partners that help you in writing content, creating visual designs, creation of video, etc. The whole process of approval and annotation is coming in play there as well, and the whole notion of collaboration comes in play on that creation and optimization phase. At a certain moment, your content is obviously finished, it's ready to be distributed, and you start pushing it through the different channels that you want to serve it to, online, e-com, social media, whatever you can imagine. And ultimately, again, you want to audit and track performance of that content so that you can measure what's been effective, what's been helpful, and avoid mistakes in the next iteration of this process. It seems like this is the theory and pretty straightforward, but also if we talk to a lot of organizations, they are faced with what we call the content crisis. A lot of good efforts are being executed and people try and do their very best to get some process in place, and they have campaign and project kickoffs with schedules, milestones, and strategies. They obviously develop content internally, externally. They go over iterations of review and approval. They try to follow up on projects and where they are sitting, who they are waiting for. They publish and they try to test and optimize that. Now, the big struggle within this whole process, or content crisis as we call it today, is that people are typically faced with multiple tools, which are not always fit for purpose. We see a lot of strategy and schedules being generated in Excel sheets, PowerPoints, and Gantt charts, but you can't. It's very difficult to follow up on that and to have proper project management on this kind of tools. So multiple tools are being used. They're not always integrated to each other. Processes are difficult to follow, difficulties to collaborate. Still, we see a lot of emails, tweet transfers, you name it, for people to exchange information and content within their teams and with the outside world. And ultimately, people get poor visibility into the performance of their project. And at the same time, we are faced with a continuously growing demand for content and volume of content that is required to drive those personalized experiences. So typically, we look at the different technologies and different tools our customers are using. And historically, we've seen that a lot of companies have been investing a lot of time and effort and money in their publication channels. Obviously, it's important to have a very good website, a very good online presence to welcome your customers, definitely in these days. And you should have a proper e-com solution in place that stores baskets because you want to decide the day after, etc., etc. And obviously, you want to drive social media, tapping into TikTok these days, which is suddenly becoming very, very popular. But we see historically that people have been building silos within the organization. Silos of people being responsible for one or the other publication channel, and they don't necessarily exchange information, exchange content, and they don't necessarily work together on a content strategy or what they want to achieve. It's still a very siloed environment in many organizations. So typically, our first piece of advice is try to get your content out of your channels, rather than creating, managing, and storing the content in the different solutions that you use to drive different publication channels. Try to build that single source of truth of content from which people can pick the appropriate pieces, from which people can publish in their preferred publication channel. And if we talk about content, this is more than just final and approved visualizations or digital assets, final and approved content around products, product descriptions and values and benefits of products. It's more than that. It's including even textual content like articles, blog posts, social media posts. Try to get them as much as possible in that single source of truth, and encourage reusage, repurposing of that same content in the different publication channels. It will help the organization in avoiding additional costs, because today and through the difficulty of collaboration between the different departments, we see a lot of people searching for content, they don't find it, and they recreate it themselves, or they go to an agency to have it recreated. And a lot of time and effort and money is being spent on actually recreating what the business and what the brand is already owning today. So try to get that content out of the channel, and obviously try to aggregate as much information as possible from your existing business systems in place. If you are a product-driven company, for sure you will have an ERP system in place, and that ERP system is the master of ceremony when it comes to product catalogs and product descriptions from a technical perspective. So why would we re-enter, why would we manually enter that kind of information in that single source of truth in that central environment? We'll definitely advise people to try to aggregate as much as possible this kind of information from ERP, PLM systems, even agencies that you work with, and get it in there kind of for free. But this is again not the end goal. Having that central environment in place with final approved latest and greatest versions of the content is one thing, but we want to stretch it further. We want to go into the content crisis and that whole process of planification, collaboration and management of that content. And this is what we are after with Sitecore Content Hub. Sitecore Content Hub truly wants to be that single unified platform that sparks collaboration and that helps marketeers to make information from source systems marketable and sellable and easy to use and reuse within the different publication channels you want to drive it to. And to do that, we offer our customers a number of modules or components under the hood of the umbrella Sitecore Content Hub. And starting left to right here, and we have this component for digital asset management, enterprise digital asset management, to simplify the storage, the management and the distribution of visualizations of the brand, the products, pure visual content, so to speak. But we see a lot of organizations that also need to manage what we call product content. Many organizations are product oriented, and a product can be a chocolate bar to an insurance, so to speak. Always products need market descriptions, marketing descriptions, they need value statements, they need benefits, they need visualization, so you tap into the dam again from that PCM part. We have a component purely focusing on streamlining content strategy, planning, creation and publication. Blog posts, newsletters, articles, whatever you can imagine, which will in many cases again not be a standalone piece of content, because easily you will write blog posts on a certain product. That product will have visualization, so again you will see the flow going from our content marketing platform into our products, into the visualizations, the digital assets of those products, etc. And finally, we offer two modules on top of that, our marketing resource management solution, which is the umbrella solution to manage projects and campaigns to the extent of even having control over budgets and availability of people. And we finally have a module that allows localization, personalization of marketing collateral based on templates, fully online, so that local marketeers or dealers, resellers, they can pick approved brand materials from headquarters and localize that visually and textually to their specific needs. And Sitecore Content Hub is truly leveraging the power of Microsoft technologies. Microsoft has been from the very beginning a partner to Sitecore for the creation and the development of Sitecore Content Hub, which we've started developing back in 2012 with the vision to have a true, a full-blown managed SaaS environment to our customers. And we've picked Azure as our preferred partner for everything to do with cloud and hosting. And obviously we again benefit there from the power of Azure in regards of scalability, having different main locations for a deployment, having the possibility to build satellite locations in various countries and various regions to serve local agencies, for instance, with local upload download capabilities, just to name a few of the benefits that we get out of Azure as our preferred cloud environment. Next to that, we benefit from the tool set and the different components of the Azure cloud. Next to the pure cloud environment, we benefit from a couple of technologies within the Azure cloud. including the Vision API from Microsoft Cognitive Services. Just to give you an example here, the moment that you start uploading branded material assets into Sitecore Content Hub, they will be run through the Azure Vision API for detection. So it's, if you see the example here, a picture from Belgium versus Brazil, well, all the tagging that you see on the right-hand side, being person, man, soccer, sports equipment, that's not been entered manually, but is actually tagged by the AI engine. And I think it's pretty cool to see that it does face recognition here, and it detects Kevin De Bruyne, it detects Romelu Lukaku, Neymar, and Marcelo as players on this picture. Not only we are using this AI technology, easy example, so to speak, for image recognition and automated tagging of images. We try to extend that as much as possible. So looking into similar assets, similar visuals, similar products in Sitecore Hub, Content Hub, and offer that to marketeers who are typically in search for something within the solution. In the event of selecting an image that has possible rights attached to it, maybe it's a contractual thing that you need, where the rights have expired, and instead of renewing the license and paying to reuse that particular piece of content, it could be interesting that the AI and machine behind the scenes is giving that marketeer some alternative visuals that might be free of charge and a cheaper solution to bring the same piece of information to the world. Just as an example of how we are using AI here and what could be the value of that AI in reality. At the same time, some other examples here where we are using Microsoft technologies, OneDrive here specifically, from that cloud environment where you typically store and manage all of the data that you want to store and reuse within those different channels. But ultimately, people are using that within their preferred front-end applications, being Adobe Creative Cloud, Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign, being PowerPoint, Word documents, whatever you can imagine. And to avoid people to go to that central Content Hub environment, needed to search, to download, to use it within their preferred front-end application, and after finishing the job to go back the whole journey of saving and uploading stuff to that central environment. We provide an integration here with OneDrive, with a check-in, check-out process. So people directly from Sitecore Content Hub can push this information to their desktop and start using it from their desktop as it would be on their own personal drive. We've stretched it a bit further in regards of Office documents through one of our partners called Templify, where we are giving access from within the preferred front-end application, in this case PowerPoint, people giving them the ability to browse, to search content within Sitecore Content Hub. In this particular example, we are talking here about visuals, about assets, but we can do exactly the same thing with products, product information, and even textual information we can search, find in Content Hub, and immediately use in our PowerPoint templates and our Word templates, even in emails, to populate messages to our customers and to our audiences in a B2B environment here. And Microsoft is not only a preferred partner for us when it comes to using their technologies, their cloud technologies, but also their front-end technologies in regards of Sitecore Content Hub. Microsoft has been one of the early adopters of Sitecore Content Hub. I believe back in 2015, we've started a project with them, which has turned out into what's called internally at Microsoft Cloud DAM. And Microsoft was facing some challenges back then, obviously as an organization, very large organization with a lot of divisions and a lot of marketing teams within those divisions as well. They were faced with the fact that content was stored in different places, basically all over the organization. SharePoint sites, OneDrives, own hard drives on people's computer, and even with external partners and agencies that Microsoft works with. And when they needed a piece of content, they needed to request it to those agencies, possibly even paying for it to actually get it from the agency. So Microsoft started thinking differently and envisioned one centralized digital asset management platform for all of its marketing teams. And we were shared a couple of basic requirements from the very first day. Microsoft, as many organizations, in search for a modern, attractive, intuitive user interface. Obviously, the audience of Sitecore Content Hub and the audience that we are serving here are marketeers, content marketeers, brand managers. It's this kind of audience. So you typically don't want to have a very technical user interface or a very technical application to serve them and to help them in their daily job. It needs to be modern, it needs to be attractive, it needs to be intuitive. You want to avoid typically a lot of training on the system. It needs to be self-explaining so that people can jump on it and start using it straight away. Obviously, looking at the size of a Microsoft and some other customers that we are serving with Sitecore Content Hub, in this case, a massive organization with many divisions, many locations, many teams to serve, and high performance in regards of speed. Searching for content, being able to preview it very quickly, just to scroll through the content and pick the relevant pieces that you want, saving them into a basket and possibly downloading them or sharing them with somebody from your team or external agencies that you work with was very important. And the searching mechanism was very important as well, having the ability to search in different ways. Not predefined, but very flexible, supporting multiple languages, very important. Looking at the scale and the size of the organization, the number of people, you typically, and again, if you want to keep it attractive, if you want to keep it intuitive, you ideally are looking at building a solution that allows you to search in many ways, including on a language, in a language portion, so to speak. And finally, it's about scalability in real time. Many organizations are faced with peaks. The moment they relaunch a new product is for many organizations very important, obviously. And at those specific times, you want to be able to dynamically scale up your solution to be able to serve directly your internal staff, the partners that you work with, but also indirectly, like your retail channels and all the press and every other person that needs to get access to the latest and greatest content related to that product launch, for instance. So we've been helping Microsoft with this cloud dam, and just to give you a couple of highlights here on the rollout, which is equally important. It's not only about the technology. Technology rarely solves your business issues if it's not accompanied with the appropriate services and the appropriate go-to-market, so to speak, for this project. So for the rollout of Microsoft Cloud DAM, the general marketing organization at Microsoft wanted to have a real service-based model. Really very early adopters back in 2015 for a true DAM as a service. And also allowing their local marketing teams within their different brands to adopt the system, to customize the user interface, to customize the look and feel, and to adopt that solution to their own specific requirements for the different brands within the different regions, within the different departments. Meaning that they can have potentially another look and feel user interface wise, other branding applied to that, but also into the content, having the possibility to have different filter mechanisms based on their business needs and their actual work. And we've helped Microsoft there on acceptance by building a live version of Cloud DAM in a MVP, in a kind of POC that allowed the internal team at Microsoft to demonstrate the benefits of this solution to their different departments, to their different users. And they've started actually a program to evangelize within Microsoft that Cloud DAM was the way forward by building an internal campaign, show reels, training, even roadshows around the globe to showcase the benefits of Cloud DAM for the marketeers within Microsoft. They founded a dedicated and central support team, keeping the environment clean and constantly working on improving the system. So monitoring even the behavior of the users. What are people typically searching for? How many times do they hit a 0 result when they do a search, and how can we change the configuration of the system to avoid those 0 results, and also continuously improving the solution, keeping it clean from a metadata perspective, as we call it, in order to be a in order for it to be a system that works year after year and in the future as well as today. The big value drivers and ROI of Microsoft Cloud DAM, and apologies, I can't disclose too much of detailed figures here, but from the very beginning of the project, we've seen the target savings that they've put forward by optimizing the ease of searching and avoiding reproduction, recreation of material already in place, driving the reusage and the repurposing of information and content within Cloud DAM, reduction of security leaks, having the ability to watermark content, having the ability to put rights on content so people can't just use it, but they need to ask approval and they need to be ensured that they can use a particular piece of content within a particular time frame, in a particular region, in a particular channel. By managing those digital rights around those pieces of content and information, reduces the security leaks and avoids being sued and needed to pay big bucks for the misuse of information. And again, the reduction of costs internally and externally for recreation of the same material already in place. And actually those target savings, they were achieved within a year of the start of the program. And at the same time, Cloud DAM is delivering more significant and strategic values in mainly 2 areas. It's again about providing more control over the access and distribution of assets before they are fit for public release, and reducing the time to market by being able to monitor the complete process from planification over creation, collaboration to final piece of content ready to be served to the market. Once you get this process in one single place, in one single platform, you can start building reports on it. You can find out where your gaps are, and you can continuously improve this process and procedures of working with your internal and external agencies to be able to go faster to market. That concludes my part of this webinar. So giving it back here to Darcy, and as mentioned, open for questions here.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for that, Bart. The insight's really useful, especially interesting to see some of the challenges that we've faced. I think they're all very familiar to us as marketers. So yeah, as Bart said, it's time for your opportunity to ask us some questions. So we've had a few submitted here. So we'll start with those, some that were submitted prior to the webinar from our survey. So thank you for those that pre-filled. But you can also add further questions in the Q&A and chat panel as we're discussing things. So please feel free to submit your questions there. So yeah, one of the first questions that we had from the pre-webinar survey we sent out was, from your experience, how well have companies handled the increase in content demand during the pandemic?
Nice one. Let me take two examples. I briefly mentioned already in the introduction that we, over the last month, and I don't have the exact numbers, but the number of downloads of TikToks have exploded. And also companies have started using that particular channel to serve content to their audiences and to drive, again, commerce out of this fairly new channel. Some have done that very successfully, others are still behind. So I think that's definitely one example that we've seen during the last month. I believe another one would be setting up new retail channels. Obviously, the traditional retail channels, the physical stores, shops are literally closed for some time in some areas. So companies have quickly needed to adopt to that and have, I believe, started offering new services online directly from their own websites in their e-com environments or indirectly through partners. Personally, I've seen our local retailer, DIY retailer, that was forced to close down for over a month, I guess, and we were all sitting at home, so we were refurbishing our homes. So they've been pretty fast of opening a digital store and making it available for local customers here to place their orders and actually to get it in a pretty decent amount of time.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. It's been actually pretty impressive, I think, the way we've seen people step up to new forms of digital content creation throughout this process. And yeah, as you pointed out, the retailers stepping up innovative ways to deliver their products without physical shop fronts has been incredible. So another question we have here focuses more on sort of cultural attitudes and team structure. So do you have any advice for overcoming cultural roadblocks to changing the content strategy approach?
Yeah, again, in my very early stage of my presentation, you've seen that we are advising companies to get the content out of the channel. Historically, people and divisions have become responsible for a certain channel. People drive the web, and there's another division that might be in another location even driving the online store, the e-com environment, and two hipsters somewhere in a corner might be responsible for the whole social environment. Now, obviously, if you want to get the content, the creation, the management of that content out of the channel, then suddenly the question arises, but what are we going to do here? So it's important that that organizations make that shift in thinking and redefining the responsibility for content creation and content management, and try to make that channel agnostic. Instead of being responsible for the product visuals for e-com, make somebody responsible for product visuals overall. And yes, there will be different pictures on the web than in the e-com environment. That speaks for itself. Also try to merge that a little bit. I've seen examples of photo shoots being done two, three times just for different channels. And again, I'm not saying that all visuals should be equal on the website and on e-com, but at least try to centralize it. So in one photo shoot that you can do your, if it's in fashion, that you can do your model shoots as well as your product shoots in one go, whilst everybody is out there and everything is out there. So yes, that's a challenge. And I think starting small and start building it out, making success. If you are a multi-brand environment or a multi-location environment, try to do it with one of the brands or one of the locations or markets, get some quick results in there, and then use that as a champion to convince other people within the organization that this is the right way forward.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I think, and this kind of relates to that a little bit, but we've got someone asking if they're struggling to keep up should they sacrifice personalization to deliver more content on time?
I haven't thought about that one. Well, we've talked about personalization and personal content, so to speak, right? And personal content, I think most of organizations have that pretty much under control. You do have your customer details, you have your CRM systems in which you know the first name, the last name, the addresses, whatever you can imagine of your customers in many cases. So making it personal, I think, should be a given these days. Making it personalized, which is obviously the next level. Try to understand who Darcy is and what's the interest of Darcy in our company and our brand, and what kind of products has she brought previously, and based on that, what should she be buying next? If there's enough time, yes, definitely I would start with personalizing the information, and then try to keep your audiences as broad as possible when it comes to personalization. And it's not going to be 100% correct, but at least it's better to have something than to have nothing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks, Bart. Another one that's just come in, which is pertaining back to the title of our webinar here, is what are your top tips? What concretely constitutes a bulletproof content strategy, both now and then looking towards the future?
Well, again, I think it's about being able to manage and to govern that content strategy from the very beginning, including all of the following steps. What I basically mean is that if you have one single environment, one single solution, where you can do your strategy, your ideation of content, assigning tasks to content creators, all in that single place, driven by a simple process. Don't try to overwhelm people with process management. Try to make it flexible, try to make it easy, short processes. If you achieve and centralize that and give people some notion of process and task management so that they know what they do, you can build reportings on top of that. You see what's going on in the organization. It's not going to be perfect in the beginning, but at least you have visibility on what's going on and where things go south. Then it gives you the ability to fine tune that process, to make it a bit better, to assign different responsibilities to different people, and continuously make it better over time.
That was a pretty concrete strategy there for us, and yeah, we can perhaps share that in a write-up with the attendees of the webinar, so you've got that noted down. And this question here points back to, so you're talking about, you know, brands embracing innovative digital content, with loads of brands trying to master TikTok at the moment, and one person is asking, when it comes to B2B specifically, what trends do you see in the use of branded versus unbranded content?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that last part, Darcy?
Yes, I think what they're asking is, you know, do we see any trends in B2B companies using branded versus unbranded content? So are we seeing brands use a lot of sort of influencer content, working with third parties rather than directly putting their brand, their logo, their name on content? Where are they seeing successes?
I think that's a question where I don't know the answer immediately. I need to think about that actually, and maybe we can do that as a follow-up, Darcy, to sketch some insights there and what we see happening in the world in that area.
Definitely. I think from my perspective as well on that, and yeah, we'll definitely follow up with a bit more information on this, but I think I do definitely see a trend towards companies using unbranded content. I think it is traditionally a bit more of a B2C move, but I think, you know, B2B companies are starting to think about their marketing in more of a sort of human way, you know, trying to use different channels, different social media channels, different forms of content to attract individuals, and they recognize that sort of having a brand first approach isn't always the best way to get in with their
and the risk on that unbranded content is obviously that it's just out there, right? And people don't control it in any shape or form. So I would think that even that unbranded content, that ultimately you want to have control over that unbranded content as well, and have it in a central place and make it available for people with the appropriate rights and in the appropriate markets and for the appropriate channels as well.
Definitely. And then some more questions we've got here are going a bit more into the technical, and also some kind of specific questions about Content Hub themselves. So this question is touching on the AI technology in use of Content Hub and Microsoft, and it's asking how successful that AI is at identifying relevant assets, and does that extend beyond identifying images?
First, the second part of the question, yes, absolutely, it goes beyond imagery. Basically, it helps tagging images, video, audio. When it comes to video, video and audio, there's two things to it. First of all, it's the automated tagging of what's visually inside of a video, which is something that the AI technology can provide you with as well. Secondly, it's about speech to text, being able to extract the voiceover of a video and make that available for search purposes as well. So that's the kind of technologies that we are seeing today, and only getting better and better. Obviously, these things are learning constantly, and they only get better. What's still missing for many organizations, I get a lot of questions when it comes to face recognition. I just did this small test yesterday, actually, with the visuals of our two Belgian footballers and the Brazilian footballers, and the system recognized who they are perfectly. Sometimes organizations are expecting that to happen for their management team as well, but they are not necessarily famous people anyway. They are famous within the brand and within the organization, but not beyond. So you can't expect that AI to be a silver bullet to do everything spot on and everything loud and clear. You'll still have a process for review of that tagging done by AI. That would be the way that I would approach it. Have it run through the AI, have it somebody review, and then release it for search purposes into the system.
Perfect. I think this could also be quite interesting as well. So someone's asking, from a strategic perspective, is there a way they can use sort of Content Hub to keep everyone alive and manage their team, to manage deadlines and briefs, etc.?
Absolutely. Again, that's it's tapping into the processes and into the workflows related to content, whether they're visual, product driven, or pure textual content. So from a solution perspective, each of those components, whether it's DAM products or general content, they all have a notion of workflow underneath. A typical example is I'm creating a product catalog for a new channel, for a new e-retailer. I make a selection of products, I bundle them together, but before they go out to that e-retailer, we need to kick off a process for people to review what I've been doing, and then they can push it out to that retailer. So each and every of these components have this notion of workflow and task management within. If you want to stretch it further and going really into campaign management and also measuring the time spent on the campaign, start building points, story points for the publishing of that content, how the world has interacted with it. Therefore, we have this MRM module within Sitecore Content Hub that might be relevant for brands who are at that level of thinking in marketing resource management and process management.
Definitely. No, that'd be certainly useful from an agency perspective, definitely, and can imagine for any sort of marketing team managing multiple marketing teams and processes, as you said.
Absolutely.
We do have still a bit more time. If anyone wants to submit any further questions, you can do so in the chat or in the questions panel. I still have one from earlier, which is asking, in terms of time to publication, how quickly can Content Hub clients get content in front of their users, which I think is, it's quite a broad question. It's going to depend on the sort of content that they're producing, but I think the question is more around, how can Content Hub help with the speed of content production and distribution?
Well, if it's related to the speed of, let's start with the content production, right? Again, I think a lot of time, effort, and money is being lost in translation, so to speak. Imagine if you brief your agency through a Word document or a PowerPoint that you attach to an email, and then the agency receives that briefing, starts creating something, and it needs to get back to the requester by email or WeTransfer because it's too large for emails. How do people then review and annotate? If it's even a one-to-one person, that it's already complex, leave alone if there's multiple people and within the organization that needs to review from a branding perspective, from legal perspective, etc. So a lot of time is wasted there just because there might be a process in people's minds, but the tool sets are not helping the process. So I think in regards of having that single environment from which you can do your briefing, from which the agency can upload the content they've created, immediately it's distributed and people are invited to do inline review, annotation, the comments go back to the agency. Only that will help dramatically in shortening the time to market when it comes to production of that content. When it comes to publishing of the content, it's important to understand that within Content Hub, we try to fragment pieces of content as much as possible. If I give the example of a blog post or a newsletter, for instance, even that we're not going to write it up in one single field, so to speak. We're going to have a title, we're going to have a quote, we're going to have a value statement, we will have some visuals on that content. And internally within Sitecore Content Hub, those different pieces are actually different entities of the content. Meaning if you have room enough on your website, you push the whole thing to your web content management system, and there people do some layouting and they can use it on the web. But the same pieces of information, could be the title and the quote, for instance, which we want to use in a Twitter feed. Well, it's already written. We can just push it to the social media management department or tool set, and they can reuse the same content for their Twitter feeds. And if we can manage then the calendar about the strategy and the execution, we can synchronize all of that so that we are sure that we are consistently pushing the same messaging in the same visual way and the same textual way through the different channels that we want to serve it to. And if there's a new channel popping up, it's a matter of enabling that new channel and linking it to Content Hub and start using it immediately, so to speak.
Amazing. Thank you. But we're out of questions for the moment.
We're nearly out of time as well, Darcy.
Only a few minutes left. I wanted to touch on before we wrap up, just to hear a bit about what your favorite feature is of Content Hub, or where you think it can offer the most value. We've touched on so many elements of it today, but maybe if you could conclude with one particular favorite.
Let me point out three things actually.
I'll allow you three.
First of all, it's in regards of the user interface. The organization behind Sitecore Content Hub started off as a service organization, and we were helping our customers with their online presence, so building websites, building applications, so apps for mobile, etc. Our founding partners, they're both architects, so we have from nature, so to speak, a sensitivity for look and feel. And with an audience of marketeers, the user interface and the intuitivity of the user interface, I think, is a pretty unique selling point and feature of Sitecore Content Hub. Secondly, it would be more about the technology itself, purely managed SaaS in the Azure cloud. I know a lot of organizations, software vendors are still struggling to get from the old on-premise license model into a SaaS/hosted environment. We never had to go through this difficult procedure. We made the decision to do it fully managed SaaS from day one, and today I never see any request for people who want something on-premise anymore. So modern technology, user interface, and maybe the third one would be around services. Again, the technology itself will not solve the business issues, and we have the luck or the strategy, I should say, within Sitecore to be able to serve our customers directly on certain topics through our own professional services team. At the same time, we have built out over the years a network of partners, being consultants, implementation partners, advisory partners, and we can really help our customers. If they don't have such a partner already in place, we can really help our customers in guiding them to a partner that can really help them with the soft skills around their projects when it comes to the execution, the customization, and selling it internally, so to speak, to make it truly a success.
Yeah, that partnership is so important and such a differentiator. Well, thank you, Bart. We'll wrap up now. And thanks everyone so much for joining us for today's webinar. Rosanna from CX2030, who's been sending you your invitations, is going to follow up with all of you after this webinar with, you know, some of the content that we've shared with you today, some of the slides, and, you know, some further topics for discussion. And if you'd be interested in learning more about Content Hub, discussing your content strategy further with Sitecore, you can email Rosanna directly on the email address here, or just reply to her follow-up to you. And you can also visit CX2030.com for more content if you enjoyed this webinar today. Okay, that's it from us. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Darcy. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe.
Bye.
And enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.